True horror stories that will give you goosebumps. Story number 1. Key and M. On a work trip, I drove on a lengthy highway to a cheap hotel in a town I'd never heard of, but was conveniently located off the interstate. I drove on this empty road for hours, only seeing another car or two every once in a while, until at some point, I saw a car's headlights coming up behind me. For the next 3 hours that I drove, this car stayed behind me on this massive empty highway. When I reached the exit for the hotel, I pulled off and parked in the lot. A few seconds later, the car behind me did the same, parking on the other side of the hotel's parking lot. It was a really big coincidence for them to have been behind me for 3 hours and have the same destination as me. But I tried not to overcomplicate it and considered it some strange luck. On the outside, this hotel was not very attractive. It was old and small and the only building off the highway. No other restaurants or houses or anything. I was under the impression when I booked it that it was in a town, but I guess I was wrong. I got out and grabbed my bag, then went up to the front desk inside the building. The woman at the front desk checked me in, giving me a key card to my room. For how old the place looked, both inside and out, I was half surprised they even had key card doors and not physical locks. I walked down to the end of the hallway on the first floor, going up to my room and scanning the card multiple times before it finally worked. It was old-fashioned and very small, but it looked clean and taken care of, which was all I was concerned about. I set everything down and started unpacking what I needed for the night. Just moments later, there was a knock on my door. I looked out the peephole and saw a man standing in the hallway. He didn't look like a hotel employee, so I ignored him and didn't answer the door. The empty hotel and highway made it seem like a safe option. Whatever he wanted wasn't important because he didn't knock again. After finishing my task, I showered and went to bed. I watched a free movie on the TV and fell asleep around 12 or 1 a.m. When I woke up, the room was dark and I was exhausted. I heard a beeping sound in my head and I snapped awake as I realized what was happening. I quickly opened the door, scanning the hall, but barely missed him. A few seconds later, the front desk woman appeared at the end of the hallway, nervously looking at me. I asked if she saw anyone running, and she said a man had just left the parking lot. I saw him get into a car that was behind me on the highway, back out, and drive away, squeaking his tires from leaving so quickly and dangerously. I asked the woman for more details, and she said he had just entered and went down the hall, assuming he had a room. She then saw him sprinting out. I told her I woke up to the sound of a key card trying to unlock my door, which made me fear he had the right one and could have tried again. Story number 2 by Anonymous. I work at a family-owned hotel in my town. Despite its small and rather less luxurious appearance when compared to other big-name hotels, we actually get decent business. It's nothing crazy, but there aren't a lot of other hotels in our town, so most people only have a couple of options to pick from. During summer and winter, we get a lot of bookings, but in spring and fall, it slows down to just a few bookings a night and rarely no bookings at all. This happened last spring when our hotel only had a handful of people staying with us. I was working my normal a.m. and just around 11, a man walked through the front entrance with a large rolling suitcase. He looked normal, and while he was kind and soft-spoken, he seemed very tired, like he'd maybe just gotten off a long plane ride. He asked for a one-night stay with the room on the first floor at the end if possible. While we don't always take these kinds of requests, I allowed it because it wasn't busy. He thanked me and walked down the hallway, and I continued standing at the desk, organizing papers. But then another man walked in. He carried no luggage or bags and looked tired as well, but was much less friendly. He almost demanded a room, wanting it next to the man who'd just come in before him, saying they were friends on a trip together. This was a normal request we'd get sometimes, although usually the group staying next to each other would come in together. But since I'd given the other man his request, I felt like I had to with this man as well. I didn't see any reason for him to be lying or any reason for it to be a problem. I gave him the room at the end of the hall next to the other man, and he walked off. I did some more work, then sat down and relaxed for a while, snacking on some lunch I brought and scrolling through the news on my phone. After about an hour, the desk phone started ringing. I got up and checked, seeing it was a room number, not an outside caller. I answered and started talking, but only a second in they hung up. I didn't hear any voices or anything, only a shuffling sound just before they ended the call. I figured they accidentally called or decided they didn't need anything, but I still checked the room number and noticed it was the one I'd given to the kind man who walked in about an hour ago. Another couple of minutes passed before a thud echoed down the hallway. I stepped around the counter and looked, not seeing anyone. For a noise to have traveled that far and literally echo in the building, it had to be something really loud, either breaking or falling over or something like that. I went back to the desk and redialed the room number that had just called. They rang for a second, but then they rejected it. I looked down the hall once more, but didn't know what else to do. If it was something bad, they would have called or come up to tell me, so I just left it at that. 30 minutes passed of no further sounds or calls until I heard someone coming down the hallway. I saw a less friendly man at the counter and confirmed his checkout. He left, leaving me with a strange feeling. Days later, I discovered that the other man had never checked out. The suitcase and belongings were found, but he was nowhere to be found. We tried to find him, but he was never found. Story number 3, by Landon I. Just a month ago, I stopped at a motel overnight while moving across states. I didn't plan the route or choose the motel, just went with the closest one after falling asleep. The motel was run down and in the woods, not where I wanted to stay. No automobile is present. I wasn't sure how the front desk worker got there. I walked down to my room, which was run down but better than nothing. The tub was filthy, so I went to bed. Before turning off the lamp, I heard a strange noise from outside the room. Door handles were shaking from several rooms. I relaxed and closed my eyes, but was interrupted. Someone banged on my door, sounding like they were punching it. I stood up and realized the door had no view outside, flipping the latch and opening it slightly. A man was standing there with a grim look and seemed frustrated about something. He was older, maybe mid-40s, with longish hair and a beard. "What's your problem?" I said, upset about the way he banged on my door. The man gave me a cold look and asked an unusual question. "Did you pay for this room?" I looked at him confused and said, "Yeah," but he gave me a questioning response like he didn't think I did. He asked me to come with him to the service counter to get it figured out because he was told that this was his room. The situation already started out strange, but this had me even more puzzled. There were no other cars here, and likely nobody else staying at the motel, so the possibility of us accidentally being given the same room within just a few minutes was nearly zero. I started to close the door, but the guy slammed his body against it to prevent me from shutting it fully. In an instant, another guy came from around the wall with some tool that he was putting against the lock, trying to unlatch it. All I could do was press up against the door and try to push it closed, but the force of both men pushing was overpowering me. In the chaos, the door moving knocked the tool out of his hand, and when both of them looked down, I slammed the door shut. After a few more hits at the door, their departing footsteps gave me relief, and I called 911. Despite not having a car, police found their shoe prints leading to the woods behind the motel, leading to only trees and dirt. Did you like it? Tell us what you think of the video in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting videos.